Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us on another episode of Beyond Insights. Today, we're speaking to a bit of a different kind of guest. Steven Puri is a speaker and serial entrepreneur. He's the CEO of the Sukha company, a flow state app, and he was previously the chief content officer at Centered, the vice president of production at 20th Century Fox, and the executive vice president of Kurtzman or Orky, hope I'm saying that right, at DreamWorks Studios. Steven has overseen movies such as Die Hard 5, The Wolverine, and 24. He's worked on Transformers 1 and 2, Star Trek, The Proposal, and many more. And more recently, he's led many remote teams and has learned that what makes remote work successful isn't what most people focus on. Today, Steven runs a community of 34,000 productivity-minded people in the Sukha, and some of them mention our podcast to him as a resource that they use for business advice. So we're really grateful to have been mentioned, and we're very keen to dive into a different angle of focus, mindset, and intentionality for knowledge work in a world that is filled with distractions. So thanks so much for joining us, Steven.
That was such a generous introduction. And for those who are playing along at home or listening in the car, I hope this episode for you is both entertaining and engaging as well as actionable. So let's go.
Fantastic. So I gave you a bit of a formal introduction there. But when we first spoke, and again now, you mentioned that you're a new dad. So I wondered, how is parenthood treating you? Has it given you like a new lease on life? I know it's cliche to say. Has it changed your perspective in any way?
That is so nice of you to ask. We're just around 2 weeks in. I am considering it a win that I'm using nouns and verbs together because I haven't slept much for several weeks. Super grateful. We had a baby boy. His name is Satish, which is Sanskrit for Lord of Truth. And he's adorable and really good-natured. And it's unclear to me how I could love anything more. It's like just baffling to me. After living my whole life, I think in a very narcissistic, self-centered way of like taking care of business myself. Now all I care about is like, is he happy? Is he well fed? Is he warm? Like it's an amazing, it's been a great 2 weeks, but I haven't slept. So this can be an interesting podcast.
Sleeping. But at least you're still coming out positive overall, despite
Any point I fall asleep to this podcast, just nudge me. I'll be back.
won't take it personally.
Please don't. My wife doesn't. We're good.
And on another kind of icebreaker, what's something that you think might surprise people about you?
I'm one of the only people that you will meet that's been a senior executive at a couple of film studios and also raised over $20 million of venture and run a couple of tech companies, one successful exit and 2 failures, and let's not run from the failures. Like you learn a lot from, I learned a lot from them. So I think that's kind of the interesting thing is being around a lot of high performers in both businesses, which are both creative and technical. You see patterns. You see patterns in how people can be a high performer and have it sustainable, not like burn out after 5-10 years, but be like, oh, this is great. And that's a lot of what I lecture about now. It's a lot of what I share. It's how we built our company, the Sukha company. Sukha means happiness, by the way, in Sanskrit. So there's that.
Awesome. Yeah, I think it's a very unusual background. I was definitely surprised
It is.
someone from the film industry was reaching out to us on this podcast, and also excited on a personal note because I had studied film. Yes, so I was really excited. Yeah, that's
Like
something.
AFTRS or Swinburne or where?
So in Johannesburg, where I'm based, at Wits, they had opened up a film school. It was the first year they were doing the program when I joined.
Oh, wow. Okay,
That
cool.
is my original what I studied.
Yeah. That is super cool. And I'll mention this to you. One of the things that was interesting about listening to your pod, because someone in our community mentioned you, is a lot of the people who are part of the Sukha company of the membership around the Focus, Flow State app, they are knowledge workers. So they're accountants, attorneys, writers, engineers, designers, people who basically have a certain number of hours of work on their laptop to do every day. And it was cool to discover some podcasts I'd never heard of when they were like, oh, here are things that we listen to and here are things we watch. So that's how I encountered you. So
Awesome. Glad to see how far a reach our podcast actually has. It's always really cool to hear.
global world is crazy.
So returning to the idea of Sukha, you mentioned it means happiness. Of course, Googled it as well. So happiness, pleasure, ease, and joy. I was wondering why you think that's an important concept in the workplace, and what it means to you.
I will tell you. So my wife and I met in yoga in Equinox in Manhattan, New York, right? And we have a daily yoga practice. It's a big part of our life. And when we got married a couple of years ago, I had an early version of this flow state app working. Where flow state, is where you concentrate and distractions fall away and, you sort of feel energized at the end, right? So we went on our honeymoon to Bali, which is a wonderful place to go if you do yoga, right? Hang out on the beach, do yoga with your new wife. Like, I'm very grateful my life is such a place I could take a few weeks and go do that. So on the way there, I said to Laura, I said, I would love it if on this trip when, no one's bothering me, they know I'm on my honeymoon, if I could come up with a name for this thing, because we had a lot of early beta users, but I was still struggling with, we call it like distraction blocker, or flow state thing, or, like what? And Laura said, great, good luck. So we got there. And the first day I said, you know what might seed my unconscious mind? Do you mind if I do a quick Zoom call with maybe 2 or 3 of our members and just go, hey, what do you like about this? Like, why do you use this? Maybe they can give me something. So she's like, I'm going to the pool. I'll see you at dinner, but enjoy your Zooms, right? So I did. I spoke to 3 people who in the group chat said they'd talk to me. And I asked that question. I was just like, Alexandra, hey, what do you love? Like, do you love the music, the flow music we have? Do you love the smart assistant that nudges you when you get on your phone, stuff like that? And to the third Zoom, I was wrapping up. I was like, hey, I asked for 10 minutes. I want to be respectful of your time. We're at 8 minutes. I'm going to let you go. Thank you. And the guy whom I did not know that well, and he's still a member, I see him in there sometimes. He said to me, Steven, you asked the wrong questions. And I was like, okay, I'm super curious. What is the right question I should have asked? And he said, you should ask me why I pay you. Okay. We don't charge that much. Why do you pay me? And he said, I found the past year or so, I have 2 kinds of days. At 3:00, I am playing with my kids. They're 2 and 4 right now. Or at 6:00, I'm kind of down on myself. Why did I not get the big stuff done? And I'll have to get up early tomorrow and kind of get a jump on it. He said, I realized the difference is, did I hit play in your app that morning? So I pay you because my kids are not going to be 2 and 4 forever. And I was like, wow, you win that round. That is such a better way of understanding what we do than what I was going for. So I told this to Laura at dinner, and she's like, that guy's really articulate. Like, you should pay him. Right? So we were going to bed, and Laura looked at me and she said, you wanted the universe to speak to you and give you a name for what you're doing. That guy was the universe talking to you. And what he said to you was, it's not about the features. It's not really about productivity. What it's about is being in control of your life and that feeling of happiness when you're in your lane doing what you're meant to do and you're good at it. You can do it with ease. He wants to play with his kids because he's in control of his work. He's not controlled by it. And that's why we chose the name, the happiness company, the Sukha company. And that's ultimately what we believe is our community is people who are good at what they do and they want to be in control of it. They want to say, you know what? At 3:00, I want to be done with a feeling of joy rather than at 6:00. I want to feel like, where did the day go? I was busy all day, but and trust me, I speak as someone like, if this is an Alcoholics Anonymous meeting, I'm, Bill W going like, hey, I'm an alcoholic and I needed help to just say, I want to be done earlier and feel in control of my day, not feel like, oh man, you know?
I think that's really important and a super powerful message, especially a lot of our listeners, they're accountants or they're small business owners. There's a lot of stress involved. You have tight deadlines, you have stressful period, tax season. It can be really hard to have the sense of joy when you're feeling stressed out, how would you recommend that, when you're running your own business or you're an accountant in tax season, that you find this sense of calm and joy?
Okay. So I'm going to approach that from the opposite side, which is why is it you can't? Okay. Because I will tell you, and I speak from personal experience at failing. So why can't you? Well, here's one reason. If you look on the stock market, the trillion-dollar companies, most of their business model is steal your life. Their business is making sure that they paid the top designers, the top behavioral psychologists, the top engineers to distract you.
Hmm.
And it is as if, Mark Zuckerberg called you up and said, Alexandra, hey, listen, I'd like to have your life and I'm going to sell it to these advertisers and I'll keep the money. But you know what? I'm going to give you some dancing cat videos. Is that cool? And it sounds ridiculous when I say it that way, but it is exactly what they do. And it used to be 10 years ago, they were embarrassed by that. And, in this country would have, Zuckerberg had to go to Congress and testify why he was doing what he was doing. And he'd be like, oh, shucks, Facebook is just for, grandmothers watching videos of their grandkids. And now they are absolutely emboldened. You listen on the shareholder calls, you read their quarterly reports. They're like, here are all the techniques we're using to steal people's lives. And by the way, next quarter, we are going to use these new, better techniques to steal more of their lives because it's about shareholder value, which means selling more of your life to advertisers. So let's start from there. When you think about every time you watch a Google video, suppose it's something valuable to you. Suppose it is, hey, there's a new change to the tax code and some smart, YouTuber made an explanation of how the tax code is changing, which is a big deal in our country because, with Trump, a lot of the tax code is like shifting every day, right? So there is that. And as soon as you come to the last 20 seconds of that video, Google shows you all the candy. Oh, Alexandra, guess what? We have these videos you could watch next. And by the way, we have a lot of data on you. And we know these are so attractive to you. You're going to want to click one of these. And you know what? There goes half an hour. And there goes an hour. And it may happen at 10 a.m. in the morning. But the pain you're going to feel is at 6 p.m. when you're like, man, how did I not get my returns done? How did I not get my briefs reviewed? How did I not get my engineering code checked in? You had a really good engineer on talking about the compartmentalization and modernization of apps. I loved that episode. So your question, I want to answer by saying, you have to look at the things that are stopping you from actually being happy. And then you need to make a plan to address it. So with me, because I know if I run into a problem when I'm coding, suppose there's a build that keeps failing, I get frustrated. My brain is so trained to get the dopamine without even thinking, my hand will just pick up my phone. And so I'll check my WhatsApp to see what friend in France, texted me back, or, open TikTok, or I'll go to my emails and see who email, right? Instant dopamine. And they know that. It's not only that social media is the attractant, it's they've designed email and text messages and SMS and, RCS and WhatsApp to have that same dopamine roller coaster, right? So you just want to open WhatsApp. I want to see, did Alexander text me back? Oh, it's Eric Garnier's birthday. Did he, that sort of thing. So here's what we did, because I'm guilty of this, is we designed a simple Chrome extension. It's free. That, you know what? When you open YouTube, when you open X, when you open whatever it is, Twitter, it gives you a little pop-up. It just says, hey, is this helping you? And it doesn't stop you. But it gives you that 1 second to say, who do I want to be? Do I want to be the guy or girl at 3 p.m. that's playing with my kids, feeling joy? Or do I want to be the 6 p.m. person who's like, oh man, I guess after dinner, I'll try and finish my work, right? Because I'm sick of being the 6 p.m. person.
It's adding that layer of intentionality. How are you going to use your attention? What are you going to focus on? And it's just that little prod of,
Yeah.
do you actually want to be doing this right now?
That is so true. And when you say intentionality, there's one thing I want to hang a lantern on, which is we may look at our task list and say, oh, there are 17 things I need to do. If you're an accountant, there are all these returns I need to do. And I need to do my thing. I need to also post my social media. Oh, right. But if you actually begin your morning with a very clear intention of saying, here are the 3 things that I think I can get done today, that realism, that pragmatism of saying, you know what, there may be 17 things that do need to get done, but I'm going to feel joy. I'm going to feel the win if I choose the 3 that actually move my life forward, move my team or my company forward. And that's my goal for today. It's amazing the way when you start to limit your focus, because focus is not about a spectrum of things you're trying to do. Focus is saying what's actually important. And you say that to yourself before you start. It's weird the way at the end of the day, you experience happiness.
Yeah, I think it's so true. By finding those few things, sort of bite-sized things to focus on, you already have a kind of structure for your day and you know, okay, I can't get everything on my to-do list done, but if I can get these 3 things done,
Yeah.
that'll be great. I can do them well, hopefully, because I'm focusing.
Let us hope.
Yeah, that you have that feeling of achievement.
I'll tell you a funny story. So I have ADHD, right? Um, it was interesting to me that when I would start my day looking at my task list and it had a dozen things on it, whatever, right? I would feel almost a paralysis. I don't know where to begin. I can't get all this done. You're like, just looking at that list actually slowed me down. So what we did, and it's going to sound really simple, but sometimes simple solutions are good, is as we modified the Sukha, the app, the Associate app, I said, you know what? As soon as I hit play and I start my day, right? The music begins, my distractions are blocked. I want the app to hide everything but the top 3. I don't want to see them. I want them out of my field of view. So when I look up, I go, oh yes, I'm doing 1, 2, and 3 today. And can I tell you, not only did that work for me, but across our membership, people became 77% more likely to do all 3 when they couldn't see the rest of their list. It allowed them to have focus. Nothing changed. It's the same tasks. It's the same people. It's the same number of hours in the day. But it was just that thing of looking up and seeing a whole list and being like, or looking up and seeing 3 things going, you know, I can do that. Yeah, I can crush this.
That makes a lot of sense.
Mental hack, easy. You know, a lot of the simplest things are the most powerful.
Yeah, like if you're trying to eat more healthily, not keeping your cookies in the cookie jar on the counter is a good start.
Oh my God, can I tell you? Yes. So simple.
Just keep it
And
outside.
can we talk about some other little mental hacks that are great for knowledge workers? Again, we're talking about people who sit on the laptop who have to do work, lawyers, accountants, engineers, writers, designers, right? One mental hack, as simple as like what you said, don't put the cookie jar out if you're trying to lose weight, right? Mental hack costs you nothing. You don't need anybody's app to do it, right? You just do it, right? Here are some things that I saw that I thought these were very interesting ways high productivity people work. One thing, chronotype. Chronotype is the concept that there are times of day you are more adept at doing certain kinds of things. And as you become sensitive to this, you start to plan and organize your day better. The first time I encountered this was with a screenwriter, very famous screenwriter named Ron Bass, who wrote My Best Friend's Wedding and Rain Man, like a whole bunch of basically big movie star kind of movies, right? So he's making $1-2 million a script. He was famous, maybe infamous. He would not talk to his family in the morning. He would get up, no, hello, honey, no, hey, who wants pancakes? Who needs a ride to school? He would go and write. And he said to his family, listen, when I start talking to you, I can't hear my character's voices in my head anymore. And that's what I get paid for. I mean, he writes the words that Julia Roberts and Tom Cruise and say yes to do his script because the character voices are so good. And his family, of course, is like, Dad, You go make $2 million. We're good. We'll make the pancakes, right?
We'll speak to you
So
later.
it was super interesting to see he was that aware that in the morning he could write dialogue and he had to use that time. It was like sacred to him. And in the afternoon, he would do studio notes meetings and meetings with other writers and things like collaborative sort of stuff, right? And that was my first encounter with someone who was like very aware of this. And I realized you can figure out your chronotype very easily. All you need, take a piece of paper and a pencil. Draw a little grid Monday through Friday, morning, afternoon, and just jot down what you did for a week or 2 weeks if you want. Simple. Oh, you know what? I wrote my blog post this morning. And how did you feel? Smiley face, right? Oh, this afternoon I worked on, coding. Da, da, da. This afternoon I did this thing. How'd you feel? I'm telling you, you look at that after 5 or 10 days, you will see the patterns. You're like, man, I should always be writing in the morning, or I should always be returning emails in the afternoon, that sort of thing. And it's free. It's just like putting a cookie jar away. You do it and you're like, why didn't I start doing this sooner? So chronotype is an idea concept that I think is really important. Another one related to that is there's a relationship between mental space and physical space. And again, let me tell a story to illustrate this, right? So when I was straight out of school, I ended up producing the digital effects for Independence Day, the big alien blow up movie, right? Got very lucky. We won the Academy Award for the visual effects. And the director and producer and I became very close, Roland and Dean. Great guys. We started a company together. So here's a funny thing. When they went off to write, they would rent this villa down in Puerto Vallarta, Mexico, right? Some beautiful white marble villa. I'd never been there. And I remember Roland told his assistant, hey, Joey, go rent the villa. We need to go write the next thing. Go rent it for like 2 months. And she came back and she said, oh, it's rented. I mean, it's like an Airbnb or something, before Airbnb. It's like a rental property. She's like, someone rented it. It was so important to Roland. He called his entertainment attorney that Friday, and John Deemer, who's a fantastic attorney. I said, John, buy the villa. By Monday, Roland owned a $5 million villa in Puerto Vallarta. Where the renters went that were there, I don't know, but they were gone by Monday. Probably paid nicely to pick up their stuff and go. And Roland Dean went down there and wrote for 6 weeks, and they came back with the script. And it became the 3rd highest grossing movie in film history. Right? And I asked Dean about this. I was like, that seems a little extreme to me to be like, hey, we have to go buy this house to go write, but I see it, at work. And he said this, he said, there's a room there where in the morning the light comes in over the pool. And there's something about that it just inspires us. When we're writing there, we don't think about, oh, what star will be available? What are the studio notes going to be? Oh, is the budget going to be too high? All we think about is, what's the movie we would want to see? And we write that. And he said, that's why it's important to us. And it is not to say that you need to have a $5 million villa in Mexico in order to do anything, right? Because I'll tell you later, when I was at DreamWorks, I was executive vice president with Kurtzman Orsi, which is how you pronounce Bob's last name, right? So they, for those who don't know, because a lot of people listening to this are not necessarily in film, they're the writers behind Transformers 1 and 2, Star Trek 11, Zorro, The Island, Mission Impossible 3, like tons of these big movies. And when they were in crunch time, we had an office, the DreamWorks, the Amblin compound is on the Universal Studios lot in Hollywood, right? So right across the street, there's a hotel, the Universal Hilton. Not a glamorous property, okay? This is where you go with your kids the night before you go on the rides at Universal Studios. This is not an amazing place. But they would have their assistant rent a room there for a couple of weeks. And they would go there every day to write. And I thought to myself, again, they're making millions of dollars a script. They could go to Bali. They could go wherever they want to go write. And they go to this hotel across the street. And I realized for them, they had met back in college. And that probably evoked dorm room. Kurtzman on the edge of the bed and Bob at the little desk on his laptop. And that brought them back to that place of we're these scrappy writers who have to prove ourselves and, show that we can do this. And it worked. I mean, obviously they wrote some of the biggest grossing movies recently. And I share that because that both of these sets of writers had a very strong sense of there is a physical space that gets us in a mental space. And if you're working remotely or if you're working, in an office location, you can start to create that. You can start to say, you know what, when I'm here, this is where I do this. And it trains your brain that when you enter that space, you go, oh, I'm in this mode now. Because often with laptops, we have the flexibility of, oh, well, I could kind of work anywhere right now. Da, da, da. And it actually is a little confusing to your brain. It'd be like, oh, I'm, maybe in the kitchen or I'm in the living room or whatever. I'm sort of floating around the house working, doing stuff. Just another little thought. Okay, that was a really long speech. Back to you in the studio.
Mm, I think that resonated for me though, because I work a hybrid job, so I'm usually in the office, and there I'm very used to this is my spot. This is where I work, and I'm happy. That feels normal. When I started working from home once a week, I had to find like my spot where I could work from it. I always sit in the same place, even though I could sit, anywhere.
Yeah, that's great. I love that.
Pretty almost always in the same place. And it made me think of Virginia Woolf saying, to be a writer, you need a room of one's own. So I think like it makes a lot of sense for writing in particular, but I think for a lot of different professions, finding that space where, I don't know, you have like the mind-body connection. This is where I'm going to do my work.
That is so true. So let me ask you this. When you are working, when you're saying, I have something I want to do, what are the things that pull you away from it? What are the distractions that you wrestle with?
I think it's difficult in an office space. I actually find it's other people.
Yeah.
We use this app called Slack.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, kind of like WhatsApp for work, and I get constant Slack. So I'll be trying to write an article or something, and I keep seeing, there's a Slack. You need to do an email on this. You need to check that, and so that's difficult because I want to be available to people, but at the same time, if you're trying to do deep work, having that Slack notification come through is very disruptive.
It is true. So let's talk for a moment about deep work, right? And there have been some wonderful writings on this. Very smart people have researched it. Something I'm passionate about is flow states. And I know there's a portion of your audience who is at home or in the car and they're flow masters. They know about this. And there's probably also a cohort that's like, I've heard of it. What's kind of the deal? Is it fair if we talk for 30 seconds what it is so everyone knows?
Yeah, perfect.
Okay. So there was a Hungarian American psychologist who actually died, I think, 3 years ago this month or last month. And his name is Mihai Csikszentmihalyi. And he had a thesis. He said, if you talk to high performers in various disciplines, they have these highly concentrated states they go into where they do the thing that makes them famous, the thing that we know them for, right? And they talk about these states in very similar ways. Essentially, he was like, what's up with that? Right? So he did his research, talking to athletes and scientists and writers and, people in all these different disciplines. And at the end of it, he wrote a book. And the book is called Flow. It is the seminal work on this. It is from whence we get the term flow state. And he said the greatest thing. He said, I named it flow because I think it's the most beautiful metaphor for what I found, which is we are all on the river paddling to move ourselves forward. But if you align your boat with the current, it carries you. It magnifies your effort. You go further and faster. And that is what these high performers have figured out how to do repeatedly. And so in the book, he talks about what are the characteristics of this flow state that he named, right? He said, well, you know what? Distractions fall away. You lose track of time. You don't really have a sense of did half an hour go by or 2 hours because you're not watching the clock. You often do your best work. And at the end of it, you feel uplifted. You can feel a sense of joy as opposed to a sense of depletion. And you're not like, oh God, I need a rest. It's like, oh man, I feel great. I did not even know the term flow state the first time I experienced a flow state. I was on a flight. I was going from here, Austin, Texas, to San Francisco. And the next day I was going to meet with my team. And I thought, you know what, on the flight, I'm going to go into Figma and mock up some ideas I had for a feature so we could discuss it more tangibly, right? Down on the plane, Alaska runs that nonstop route. And the captain comes on. He's like, hey, kids, sorry, the Wi-Fi is out, see you in San Francisco. So we take off. And I think about 15, 20 minutes later, we're starting to descend. And I think, oh my God, something really bad has happened. We're like in Dallas, Texas. Like they don't want to tell us the engine fell off the wing until we're on the ground, but something bad happened because we shouldn't be landing. And I looked down, 2 hours and 40 minutes had gone by. I had no concept. I couldn't tell you if the drink cart came by.
Oh, wow.
But my designs were done. And I had prepared myself, as maybe you have. Oh, well, when I get there, I'll grab a sandwich in the hotel lobby and I'll go up to the room and I'll finish my designs. Reality, my designs were done. I called a buddy of mine. I was like, hey, I have a free night in SF. Do you want to have dinner? And it was really kind of magical experience of feeling like, oh, I feel good about what I did. I have extra time now and I'm ready for tomorrow. Later, of course, Steven does the reading and starts to realize this was a flow state. How to make that a repeatable process, that is our goal with the Sukha company, is we have a website where we took a lot of the research that people have done on what helps you get into a flow state, what kind of music, how do you block distractions, how do you stay off your phone. And we packaged it together to say, here's kind of a ready-to-made, set of things to help you get into flow. And that to me is super interesting, that ability to train your mind to fall into that state, to do, as you said, the deep work, as Cal Newport would say. And Cal's written amazing stuff about this. And when you do get that Slack message, the research shows it takes 15 to 23 minutes to get into flow for your brain to drop in. And when you get interrupted, it takes you another 15 or 23 to get back. So that little innocent Slack message, hey, Alexandria, do you have those TPS reports from last week? Can you send me those? They destroy your flow. You have to block it, And you just said a funny thing, which I think is so true, which is Slack is kind of WhatsApp dressed up to work,
Yeah.
Slack was not the actual product of Stuart Butterfield's company. He had a company called Tiny Speck. They made casual games.
Interesting.
All their games failed. The company's going to go out of business. But Slack was their internal messaging tool that they used to talk to each other while they were developing games.
That's so interesting.
And that ended up becoming the product of the company. So it's a messaging tool made by game designers. Shocking, right? Not at all.
This makes so much sense now.
Yep. This is called Tiny Speck.
Yeah. I did not know that. Okay. I feel like this makes a lot of sense. I love Slack in general, but I do think it is something that you have to kind of mute when you're trying to do, deep work, trying to get into a flow state.
100%. Yep. Agreed. Is this helpful?
Yes, I think it's helpful. I'm sure a lot of people, yeah. I mean, distractions in work are something that I think everyone can relate to.
Oh my God, yes.
So I wanted to maybe bring it back a little bit to your film experience. So I was thinking, on film, the logistics are really important. When you're on set, you're trying to keep everything on schedule, coordinate everything, and essentially, translate the director's vision into a workable plan.
Yep.
If we were to think of an accountant as like the director in the same way of their firm, what do you think are the most critical systems or habits, maybe top 3, that they should put in place to act as sort of their first assistant director so they can execute their work?
That is such an interesting question. No one has ever asked me that question that way. I really appreciate that. So there are a couple of practices that I will mention that transpose well onto this. One is, and we touched upon this, is you start your day with the director of photography, the cinematographer, the first assistant director, meeting about what are the goals of the day, right? So you have a very tight, concentrated conversation around, these are the pages of the script we have to shoot. Let's remember that there's in the second scene, there's a firearm, so the armorer has to be around and make sure that the firearms are safe. Da, da, da. Remember, in the afternoon, we're doing a scene with rain. We have to make sure the rain, guy is here, that sort of thing, right? So you begin your day with a very clear intention. Oh, we have to get through this page and a half that involves shooting guns and a rainy scene, right? Very similar to, okay, I have to get through today. I have to do these returns, or I have to do this business plan, or I have to do the thing. And you start your day with that. Don't just dive into your day until you have a very clear intention, right? And that was one of the things we built into Sukha. Your assistant will ask you, what are your 3 things for today, right? Another thing is, we are human. You need to have a human pace, which means taking breaks to recharge. You can look at this from a neuroscience or biological point of view, which is after about 2 hours, 90 minutes to 2 hours, your brain glucose levels, like your brain fuel, is depleted. So if you want to grind it out for 5 hours, your 4th hour is not going to be as productive as your 1st or 2nd hour, period, right? You can do things to replenish that. One of the things that we do, in Sukha is we have a Pomodoro timer that you can set if you want to do 25 and 5, like Francesco Cirillo, originally created, or if you want to set it to your own rhythm. Like I do 55 and 5, right? It just works better for me. But in your break, that little, yoga chime goes off. And then we encourage you, go get a glass of water, go downstairs for a walk, do a breathing exercise. We have breathing exercise you can do. Sit at your desk and stretch, do something to rejuvenate yourself, because that 5 or 10 minutes you take will pay rewards in the next set of work. So yes, on set, there are moments when it's like, okay, you need to take a break. We're going to go set up for the next thing. Go to your trailer, like recharge. There's also, craft services around. If you're like, I need to eat something, whatever, like go get a sparkling water, do something, right? So if the first one is start your day with intention, second one is respect your natural rhythms. Like we are human, right? And here's a third one. At the end of the day, or sometime later in the day, you will watch the dailies from the day before, also called the rushes in Britain, right? But in the United States, we call it dailies. And it's essentially saying, okay, the film went to the lab overnight. This morning, the editor looked at everything that was shot, pulled out probably the most relevant material. So the director can sit there with often the principal actors, the cinematographer, the producer, and see, what did we do yesterday? How did that turn out, right? That review, that understanding of how did you do, is critical to becoming better. So for example, one of the things we're launching this week, and it's funny you and I are speaking now, is with Sukha, we're now sending you a morning after email where we say, hey, your session yesterday, do you want to see what apps you used and how long? Do you want to see what tasks you got done and where you correctly estimated your time? You thought it would take you 45 minutes to do this. You did it in 35. You thought it'd take you an hour to do this. It took you 2. Start to learn about how well you time box things. Like, so that review, just like looking at your Apple Watch with your rings, or getting your Oura or your Strava feedback or your Garmin, if you can measure it and review it, you can get better. So there are 3 very clear things. Start your day with an intention, respect your natural rhythms, and review how you did so you can learn. Fair?
Yeah, I think those are very helpful. And I love that we were able to relate these 2 very different industries to each other.
It's, we're all humans. This is the thing. Whether we're trying to design rocket ships or we're trying to make movies, or like, it is, here's a challenging task. How do I apply my brain to it and use these techniques to keep banging through obstacles and getting better? It's
Exactly.
It's similar. Now, maybe being a poet is slightly different, because there's some creative fields where it's like, I'm not sure we're going to take Picasso and turn him into a basketball player, or we're going to take Michael Jordan and turn him into a painter, right? Or baseball player for that matter. But for a lot of what we're talking about, knowledge work, there's a lot that transposes, and you can look at the high performers and go, oh, this is what they do. Okay, yeah, I can do that.
Yeah, absolutely.
This has been a good episode.
Awesome. I suppose to round out the episode, if there was just one key thing that our listeners take away from today, what would you want that to be?
I'm not going to throw something crazy out there. I'm going to return to our first point, which is begin your day with intention. Period. Full stop.
I think that's a very good start, and definitely something I'm going to take forward after this episode. Thank you so much for joining me, Steven. I've really enjoyed this conversation.
I hope that this has been, as we promised, somewhat entertaining and somewhat actionable and helpful. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. And thank you everyone for watching.
Thanks for tuning in to the Beyond Insights podcast. Please like and subscribe on whatever platform you're listening to right now. And please share with any of your colleagues or friends or family members that you think might benefit from listening to this podcast. That's all from us. Until next time, see you then.